I believe that first problem that we have to solve in winning this struggle against the radicals in Islam is educating the American public, to have the will of the American public behind us to confront this action. And we have not done that. We have been ineffective politically and culturally in informing and educationally in informing the American public as to the nature and the gravity of the threat that we face. Any war has two components. One is a physical front, the military front, which we are engaged in fully in the war against the Islamists. The second is an ideological front, a war of ideas. What are we fighting for? What are we fighting about? In America, we have failed on that front in the war against the Islamists. We have failed because we have not defined who this enemy is. One of the things that I've gathered from this weekend is, in fact, a central definition of who this enemy is, and the fact that Islam is a very important part of what the enemy how they see themselves and what their objectives is. The question is, how do we communicate to the American public this information so we can engage in the ideological struggle? That is why I believe we have seen a lagging of support in our country for this war, because when the physical front was going poorly and there was no ideological component, there was no reason for America to support it. Now we're doing well on the physical front, the military side. Things seem to be going better, and we see support gathering. But that's not going to be maintained. We can't maintain it unless Americans understand that there are consequences to losing, and you can't understand that unless you understand the nature and the gravity of the threat that the enemy poses. I believe the best way to do that is using all the tools available to us to communicate that, through education, through our political discourse, very important. But culture is upstream of politics. Culture is a much more powerful way of communicating, the message to the American public. And using the technology, whether it's film or television or documentaries or the internet, to communicate to the American public who this enemy is and why we need to be vigilant in fighting against them, is the first thing, the first step in the solutions to dealing with the problem of confronting the Islamists. So I believe that we need, as conservatives, as Americans, not just as conservatives, but as Americans, we need to create content. We need to create content that sends the message. There's been several great documentaries done, but as we all know, documentaries get very little play. They don't get people in movie theaters. They are distributed on an ad hoc basis. What I believe we need is feature-length films. I believe we need films that when people can walk into that movie house and suspend reality, which is what happens when you walk into a movie theater, and you have them for an hour and a half or 2 hours to communicate in a powerful way where people get involved in the story and feel it at a deeper level. And that's what I've been working on. I'm working on 3 movies to hope to do that, and I encourage other people, those who care about this struggle, to get involved, to help those who are putting their reputations and in many cases their safety and security on the line by going out and communicating to the American public, to the world, who this enemy is and why this is such a threat to the world.